Hello, my name's Lyle Brotherton and I'm the author of the Ultimate Navigation Manual. Today I'd like to talk to you about using a handheld Satnav, or a GPS as some people call them. Handheld Satnavs function around one premise, and that is that they can mark a location anywhere on the Earth. The term that we use for that is a waypoint, and the dictionary definition is that it is a reference point in physical space. To you and me, what that means is rather like we can take a map and we can open that map, we can either find the location that we're at, or we can find a location that we want to move to, and we can mark that with a pen. Well, that's exactly the same when we use a handheld Satnav. It's stored here electronically rather than on the map as a mark. And there are three things that we can do with waypoints, which takes it beyond the realms of a mark on the map. The first one is that from anywhere on the world, whether that's 20 metres away from here, or 200 metres, or 200 kilometres, or 2,000 kilometres, I can come straight back to this point, this exact location, in a straight line from anywhere. The second thing is, because it's an electronic reference point, I can share that with other people. So if they too have a handheld Satnav, they can come back to this point without me, just with the handheld Satnav, from anywhere in the world in a straight line. And the last thing is I can transfer that waypoint onto my computer's digital mapping. Now, the digital mapping that we're all most familiar with is Google Earth. And I can actually physically see the waypoints that I've created on Google Earth. Therefore, I can share them with my friends and colleagues, and I can download waypoints from Google Earth onto my Satnav. I'll show you how to do that later in the series. But today, we're going to create a waypoint, and I'm going to physically show you by looking at the screen how you come back to that waypoint. So your Satnav should have been on for at least 5 minutes, ideally 15 to 20 minutes to have got a good collection of the satellites that it's reporting its location from. And looking at the satellite screen, I can see that I've got a 4-metre accuracy. I'm quite comfortable with that. In addition to that, I can see I've got a good geometry of satellites. Now on the screen here, there are two rings. There's a ring in the middle and a ring on the outside. Now the ring on the outside represents the horizon, which I can see around me here, and the rings in the middle represent 45 degrees above me. So all the satellites that are in between the ring in the middle and the ring on the outside are on that plane, and then the other satellites are above me here. The reason that's important is I want the satellites to be as far spread across the sky as possible, because the way that they determine my location is that this little handheld Satnav computer locates the satellites from the transmissions they give. It takes a bearing on them, their azimuth, the angle that they are, and it ranges them, what distance they are from us. And where those lines, those little imaginary lines, intersect is where we are. Now it needs a minimum of 3 satellites. This uses 12. So I've got a good geometry. If I have all of those, I then take something that I want to waypoint, and I'm going to waypoint a crunchy bar. I like waypointing crunchy bars when I train professional teams such as mountain rescue or the special forces, because seeing grown men and women run across fields for chocolate bars is just such fun. So I take the crunchy bar, I'm going to place it on the earth, and then I'm going to stand above the crunchy bar, not on it, and I take the Satnav and I hold it at 45 degrees. That 45 degrees is the optimum angle for its antenna, as it is for all handheld Satnavs, whether it's a really expensive one with something called a quadrifilia helix antenna, or like this which has a patch antenna. It doesn't matter, 45 degrees. I can see the screen clearly. I hold it away from my body because my body absorbs satellite signals that might be coming in from behind me, and I hold it at head height. I check the satellite geometry. I already knew that was good. I've got an accuracy of 4 meters. I'm happy with that. And then I press the mark button and I create the waypoint. Now every waypoint that a Satnav creates automatically has a number. you can't just store them as numbers, because after 3 or 4 your memory will forget what it is. So it's much better to rename them. So I'm now going to rename this, and I'll call it CB1 for Crunchy Bar 1. Now whilst I'm renaming this, I can actually tell you that if I was moving away and naming this, that's fine, because once I have created that waypoint, it's stored in here electronically, so I don't need to stand still to do this. I could be still moving on. Here we are, CB, and now put in 1. And once I've done this and I've okayed it, which I'm going to do any second now, we're going to come back and navigate to it. Okay, that's now stored, this Crunchy Bar, in this field in the southern uplands, and I'm going to walk away from it, and then I'm going to navigate back to it. Okay, I've walked about 50 metres or so from that waypoint, the Crunchy Bar that I've marked, and we're now going to navigate back to it. And I'm going to show you what I actually physically do on the screen as I'm navigating back to it. Okay, so to navigate to the waypoint, I scroll through the screens until I come to the menu screen. I go down to waypoints. It was called CB1, so that will be an A to D. I can see it, shuttle over, CB1, and it gives me a selection of options there. It's on go to automatically, that's what I need to do, and I press go to. Now you'll see on there, there's quite a lot of information. The first thing is that I'm 62.3 to be precise, metres away from that waypoint, away from CB1, the Crunchy Bar. It tells me my time to go to it. Now because I'm not moving, it can't estimate a time, but as I start to move, it estimates my time of arrival. That's really handy. If you're meeting up with a group at a waypoint, you can say, look, I'm going to be there in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 2 hours. Or if you're part of a mountain rescue team, you can say, we'll be at the locus in X minutes. And that gives the team actually at the locus a great deal of information about whether they start CPR, etc. This arrow is the direction of travel. I have to follow that arrow, and the arrow has to be pointing ahead of me. You'll see it's marked the waypoint on the edge there. Now I happen to know that the arrow is pointing in the wrong direction. The Crunchy Bar is actually somewhere over there. But it's pointing in the wrong direction because the compass inside a basic Satnav, such as this one, just works from the satellites, and I need to move 1.5 metres for it to determine what the correct location is for the compass. If it had a fluxgate compass, like the big expensive ones, then it would be pointing in the correct direction. But you'll see as I move, well, let's do that now. Oh, there we are. So I now turn to follow the arrow. Now you can see the arrow, it's pointing pretty steadily. At the top of the screen I can see it's counting down now comfortably, 48 metres. I can see my time to the destination underneath that is 50 odd seconds, and at the bottom I've got my speed. As we approach the waypoint at 10 metres, my Satnav is going to put an announcement at the bottom of the screen to say that I'm approaching my waypoint. And at this point I stop looking at the Satnav and start using my eyes. Obviously I'll keep looking up so I'm not tripping over anything, but I'm getting towards it. Here we are, we're 14, 13, 12, 11, there we are, arriving at destination. Now what I'd do now is I would look up and start searching physically with my eyes, as well as glancing at the Satnav to try and locate that waypoint. So we know that we've got about another 8 metres to go. It was accurate to 4, so it's going to be somewhere inside that circle. Let's see what happens. Start going forward. It says 6 metres, 5, 3. So I now know it's somewhere in this area. And look, the arrow's pointing over that way. So let's follow the arrow. Quite remarkable. I'm now over the Crunchy Bar, and it's telling me I'm 1.3 metres from it. You'll see there why I stopped looking. It's now going to get me going back in that direction, and it'll sort of just keep hunting around this area because it knows it's somewhere in this circle. But because I can see it, and I'm within 1 metre of it, I was within half a metre, I've got to the Crunchy Bar. Now, if I move away, because it will always try and navigate me back here, it's like being attached on a fishing line. Can you see that? Even if I move off to the side here, it still keeps trying to reel me back in. So in order for that to stop that, I have to stop navigating, and I simply go to this screen, scroll down to stop navigating. I've navigated straight in a direct line to a waypoint. I could have done that from anywhere in the world. Creating a waypoint on a handheld Satnav is at the very heart of what Satnavs are about. The last point that I really need to stress is that when you navigate back to a waypoint from anywhere, it only brings you back in a straight line. It doesn't take account of ravines, rivers, mountain ranges. So we need to either do that visually, such as on a clear day like today, or we need to do it by referring to a map, either a printed map that we have, or a map on the Satnav. Waypoints, well worth knowing.